Tonight, forget what you've been told about your limits. Some stories are written in ink, but yours is still being carved in stone, unshakable, unrepeatable. There's a reason you feel out of place among the ordinary. You were meant to disrupt the cycle, not just survive it. Every setback you faced was a signal flare for greatness, not a sign of failure. You're not just here to witness change. You are the quiet force that turns history on its head. This is your reminder. The world isn't ready for what you're about to do, but that's exactly why it needs you. Stay sharp, stay unfiltered. Your journey is about to send ripples through the surface of what's possible. Some storms sweep through not to break you, but to rinse away the old paint and reveal a truer foundation underneath. When people orchestrate hurt with a surgeon's precision, it isn't a random strike. It's the universe placing you in a kiln to fire out every flaw that never belonged to your design. What felt like punishment was actually the world's most ruthless apprenticeship, teaching your spirit to hold its shape even under impossible pressure. The accounting of what's fair and what's owed doesn't happen on a public stage. It unfolds in the quiet shifts of power when masks drop and truth finally settles the balance. Every calculated slight was a page being torn from a script that never suited your role. Now, as the curtain lifts, all those silent tallies are about to rewrite the ending, and you're the one holding the pen. Every person here is walking proof that hope can grow in unlikely places. You aren't just survivors, you're architects of your own reality, still building even when the ground kept shifting. If you've ever wondered why your compassion outlasted the storms, or how your light kept shining when others turned away, it's because you've got a different blueprint inside. Tonight, let's turn the tables. Let's recognize that what you carried wasn't a burden, but a signal of extraordinary resilience no one else could fake. Some individuals step into your world not as friends but as architects of confusion, presenting themselves as the answer to chaos they skillfully arrange behind the scenes. They misread gentleness as a flaw, never realizing that true endurance is shown by those who keep choosing connection over bitterness, even when the world seems designed to harden hearts. In a landscape littered with false promises, the rare strength is in those who can still risk kindness after disappointment has made others retreat. With quiet precision, they began shifting the framework of what was real. The ground rules changed without warning. Silences became as heavy as accusations. Small gestures became signals to retreat, and honest words were slowly twisted until it was unclear if openness had ever been safe. The intention was not merely to confuse, but to rewrite the very coordinates of your sense of belonging, to rearrange the map so that home became unfamiliar. The process wasn't accidental. It was a systematic training to keep you contained, to shrink your voice, to take responsibility for wounds you never inflicted. Doubt seeped in until reality itself became negotiable. Whole seasons were rewritten as if memory was just a suggestion, each denial crafted to unmoor your trust in what you'd lived. Accusations of being too much or imagining things became routine instruments to fracture your certainty. Beneath the surface, though, a counterforce was growing. Each time your sense of self was challenged, your awareness stretched further. The very attempts to cloud your vision activated a clarity nothing could distort, building a shield inside you that no deception could reach. Sometimes life feels like it's been rigged against the ones with the purest hearts. But those same hearts are the ones that keep beating when others give up. You're not here by accident. You're part of a rare group whose scars are proof of transformation, not defeat. Each time you've picked yourself up, you've carved a path for others to follow. This is your reminder. Your journey isn't just survival. It's the quiet revolution that starts with a single soul refusing to break. Every distorted story tossed your way sharpened your ability to spot what's genuine. When lines were crossed and trust was traded for confusion, something inside you grew ever more alert. Moments meant to twist your thoughts ended up tuning your instincts. The loneliest hours were carefully set traps, designed to convince you there was nowhere else to turn. Circles you once counted on became silent, their distance anything but accidental. Relationships buckled right when a steady hand would have made all the difference. That sense of being cut off wasn't fate, it was an orchestrated design, meant to make you believe you had no choice but to rely on their false safety. It becomes clear, looking back, that the barrage was anything but random. Every critical blow seemed to land exactly when you were close to recovery. Just as you'd find a reason to trust, another crack appeared. When your confidence started to build, new doubts swept in. Every attempt to rise was met by chaos thrown to keep you off balance. None of this was happenstance. It was a carefully mapped campaign with your growth as the real target. The shift in your awareness unsettled those who depended on your silence, and your rising clarity became their greatest threat. The closer you came to recognizing your real identity, the more frantically resistance tried to hold you under. Every tool was thrown at you, not out of hate, but because even those in opposition could sense what you were about to unlock. The energy of your awakening promised a tidal wave, threatening to wash away every hidden agenda exposed by your light. What you endured was more intricate than any surface-level battle. Every emotional reaction, every glimmer of hope, every step toward healing was tracked with the care of a scientist watching for signs of evolution. Relationships were either hollowed out or removed, always at the moment you needed real connection most. Any move toward freedom was countered with another leash. The very traits that set you apart, your willingness to care, to see good in others, were twisted into shackles. What looked like kindness was used as a mechanism of control, and the oldest tricks in the book were dressed up in new disguises. Those behind the curtain mastered the art of playing powerless, drawing you into apologizing for wounds they themselves inflicted. Harm was hidden behind masks of misunderstanding, while your honest reactions were made to look like storms out of nowhere. Yet behind the scenes, shifts beyond their comprehension were taking place. The more they pressed, the more your inner world expanded, unlocking strengths they could never touch. Each attempt to separate you from your truth only made the connection stronger. Your sense of direction became more precise, even as they tried to scramble your compass. There are rules at work in this universe few understand. Forces that balance every action with a mirrored response. The more effort spent trying to drag you down, the more momentum gathered in your favor, quietly stacking up until the moment everything would be set right. The balance sheet was never lost, and the outcome was always destined to be returned to you, down to the last ounce of energy invested. If you're listening to this, you're already proof that endurance is more than just surviving. It's the kind of presence that changes the atmosphere when you walk into a room. You've become the living exception to every rule that said you'd never make it. You may not realize it, but you're quietly flipping the script for everyone watching. Tonight isn't about reliving the past. It's about understanding why you were always meant to break the pattern, so no one after you has to repeat it. Some journeys are designed not for comfort, but for the transformation of everyone touched by their wake. Rather than being defined by hardship, you became the force that set change in motion. The strength to withstand moments of hardship wasn't just for yourself, it was the match that sparked countless others to rise. As you peeled away the habits of old survival, you became the evidence that growth only needs one spark to ignite a chain reaction that cannot be reversed. Acts of courage ripple far beyond their original moment. Drawing your own boundaries became an invisible invitation for others to stand up for themselves. When you dared to say what needed to be said, it wasn't just your own voice being freed, it opened the door for every silent onlooker to step into their own truth. Your struggles didn't come to keep you stuck. They were the unique training ground that awakened capacities most people never get to discover. What felt like the breaking point revealed reservoirs of love and resolve that can't be found through ease. Where things went wrong for those who underestimated you was in their blind confidence that you'd stay asleep, bound to old stories. They expected you to play along, to accept what was handed to you, never believing you'd find the strength to break from the pattern. It was your refusal to trade your peace for their approval that turned the tables for good. The moment you stopped collecting blame for pain you never caused, the pattern that held you started to unravel. The system that relied on you to carry hidden burdens lost its power the instant you said, "Enough." Refusing to be a container for someone else's chaos forced a reckoning. Old habits of self-sacrifice faded, and those responsible had to face what they tried to keep hidden for so long. At the end, when all their usual tactics failed, they reached for one last set of levers. Trying to load you with guilt, pull you back with empty appeals, or recruit others to convince you to settle for less. Words like forgiveness and healing were twisted to mean losing yourself again. But the wisdom you carry can't be manipulated. What's called love by those who fear your independence is, to you, the very fuel for liberation. You now know that real compassion doesn't demand you stay in harm's way, and true release means walking away, not just letting go. There comes a moment when honoring yourself becomes the most courageous act of all. It's not selfish, it's revolutionary. Anyone who's ever learned to stand up for their own worth, especially after being pushed to doubt it, quietly unlocks a superpower. The ability to walk away from what isn't love and rewrite the script for everyone watching. You're not just surviving. You're leading a silent rebellion against everything that tried to dim your light. Real care begins with refusing to accept behavior that undermines your spirit. Healing isn't always about staying. Sometimes it's about closing a chapter and trusting that looking ahead will bring the real peace you've been craving. The deepest shift is this. Those who once tried to control your steps are more unsettled by your freedom than they ever were by your obedience. That's the sign you're finally shining as you were meant to. When the illusion faded, it became clear that any power others held was only as strong as the space you gave them. Stepping back and choosing your own reality pulled the plug on their influence. The sudden rush of anxiety you saw in them had nothing to do with your well-being. It was the fear of losing the access they depended on. Relationships built on taking and draining energy only work if someone agrees to stay plugged in. Once you cut that cord, the system powering their confidence quickly falls apart. You've outgrown situations and connections that simply don't match your rising self anymore. It's not about judging anyone. It's simply that, just as gravity keeps water running downhill, you can't force alignment where there isn't any. Watch how quickly the certainty they once wore slips away when confusion is no longer the currency. Without your willingness to go along, every old tactic loses its power and every story they spun unravels at the edges. The version of yourself that once accepted less is gone for good. Attempts to use past strategies now fall flat, as if trying to unlock a door that's changed its code. What's coming back around isn't retribution. It's the natural outcome of every choice made, finally catching up. Balance and timing have always been at work behind the scenes, ensuring that every energy invested returns exactly as it should. It's easy to forget just how powerful your presence really is, until the world starts echoing the shifts you create. The quiet steps you take, the honest words you speak, the boundaries you draw, they don't just ripple outwards, they become the starting point for something unstoppable. You might feel alone on the front lines, but you're not just facing down shadows for yourself. You're lighting the path for everyone who comes after you. That's not a small thing, that's world-altering, and you're right at the heart of it. What was once hidden in the shadows is now being laid bare for all to see. The stories others spun to keep you cornered are coming undone in the open, exposed for what they are. What many call karma isn't some mysterious force. It's simply the return of choices, playing out where everyone can witness them. Personal growth on this scale isn't just a private victory. It sparks awakenings all around you. The decision to live honestly, regardless of who approves, gives others the courage to stop pretending. Choosing self-respect over approval teaches those watching that fitting in means nothing without being true to yourself. The refusal to accept less than you deserve acts as a signal fire, igniting self-respect in hearts you may never even meet. Those who've walked this same path recognize each other instinctively. A community forms, not from surface similarities, but from the quiet resonance of shared transformation. Your healing journey becomes a living guide for others searching for a way out. Escaping the wall someone else built for you reveals that, in truth, those walls were never real, just beliefs that faded when challenged. The tactics used to keep you small are being identified and dismantled everywhere they're found. Tricks and games that once made you doubt yourself are now being decoded, cataloged, and passed around like survival maps. What once felt like a secret to be ashamed of is now your offering to the world, a tool for collective repair. But something deeper is stirring, something no one expected. These breakthroughs aren't just about mending your life or even healing communities. The way reality itself feels is subtly shifting. Every time someone like you steps out of old programming, a fracture appears in the illusion that's kept so many bound. These cracks don't remain isolated. They multiply, link together, and start to unravel the web that kept everything locked in place. The energy others tried to take from you was never just personal. It was the lifeblood of larger systems built on taking, never giving. The moment you reclaimed your power, you set off a domino effect, loosening the grip those systems had over everyone connected to them. You may not always see it, but you're the proof that cycles meant to keep people silent can finally be broken. Your story is evidence that what's handed down as normal doesn't have to be your inheritance. When you choose something different, even if you feel alone doing it, you're quietly rewriting the rules for everyone who comes after you. That's real legacy. You're not just waking up for yourself. You're showing that freedom is contagious, and every act of courage has a ripple. They're not just losing one person. They're watching the entire machinery they depended on come apart. It's clear now, every perfectly timed jab, every button pressed with uncanny accuracy, was never coincidence. They weren't just making it up as they went along. They were following scripts passed down like hidden maps, repeating cycles that have shaped families and groups for ages, spreading patterns like seeds in the wind, hoping no one would ever name them out loud. There are people walking among us who don't fit any old mold. People who've slipped out of impossible traps, who've seen behind curtains that most never notice. They carry experiences and wisdom that feel almost mythical, yet their paths somehow crossed. What links them isn't a secret handshake, but a shared recognition of what it means to live awake in a world that expects you to sleepwalk. Some of us have crossed paths across countless miles and lifetimes, recognizing one another in the most unexpected places. When these rare souls find each other, it's not about titles or backgrounds. It's about that inner resonance, a sense that you've heard the same silent call. These connections aren't accidental. They're the result of searching, questioning, and refusing to settle for less than genuine understanding. Think for a second. What's really stopping you from stepping into that same sense of belonging? If you're hearing these words, it's not just chance. The moments and meetings that lead to real awakening are never random. When those who are ready gather, those who benefit from confusion start to worry, because they know what happens when people begin to see the bigger picture. In that company, you're never asked to hide your story. Instead, every lesson you bring becomes another piece of the shared puzzle. The value of real community can't be measured by numbers or status. When people come together with nothing to prove and everything to share, knowledge becomes something alive, unfiltered and censored, and impossible to find anywhere else. The only real question left is not if you're worthy of that space, but how long you'll keep waiting to claim it as your own. There are rare moments in history when one person's choice sends shockwaves through time itself. If you've ever felt the weight of old wounds or patterns pressing on your life, know this: your breakthrough is bigger than you. When you rise, you untangle knots tied by hands you'll never see and clear paths for voices not yet born. Your courage rewrites destinies, and your willingness to see what others avoid is the beginning of freedom, not just for yourself, but for everyone linked to you. Never underestimate the ripple you create, simply by refusing to repeat what hurt you. Old scripts, repeated for ages, lose their power the second you choose something different. Harm that was supposed to echo through generations stopped with you and turned into something that uplifts instead of harms. Your healing travels in both directions, restoring balance for those who walked before you and laying a better foundation for those who'll come next. By changing your story, you become the reason a whole family line can breathe easier. The struggle you endured wasn't limited to what could be seen or heard. Attacks came from every direction, sometimes visible, sometimes unseen, each trying to pull you away from the quiet strength that always lived within you. The real battle was never just about daily hardships, but about keeping you from the deeper support always available to those who look within. Isolation was their most persistent illusion, trying to make you believe you'd been left behind by life itself. But chosen ones are never cut off. Even in moments when it felt like the world had shrunk to silence, unseen hands were rearranging your future, small signs and helpers lining up long before you could see why. You were being prepared, not punished. Being alone was something you felt, but being abandoned was never the truth. Everything in your life, the right word at the right time, unexpected acts of kindness, flashes of insight, wasn't a fluke. Those were the fingerprints of guidance, orchestrated by forces beyond everyday understanding, always nudging you back to your feet. Your awakening didn't happen on a whim. It arrived exactly when it would carry the most weight for everyone connected to your journey. The world needed your exact mix of wisdom and tenderness, your ability to see the dark and the light. Breaking free wasn't just a win for you. It sent a message across the invisible web connecting all of us, shifting the balance toward truth. The power of those who tried to keep you asleep depended entirely on your not noticing. The moment you recognized the pattern, the whole illusion started to dissolve. They had built their confidence on tricks and roles, believing themselves untouchable. But your clear vision shattered the false foundation, exposing how empty that power really was. Their fear isn't just about losing influence over you. It's the sudden realization that real strength never belonged to them. Everything they built depended on others staying unaware, and with awareness, the old system cannot stand. If you're here, it means you've already become a lighthouse for more people than you'll ever realize. Your healing, your honesty, your refusal to accept less, these ripple far beyond the boundaries of your own life. What you share, what you model, it becomes a map for those searching for their way home. And as you claim your space, you're showing others that new worlds are possible. Worlds where wounds don't define the future, and every act of courage rewires reality itself. People waking up together don't just lend each other a hand. They're laying the ground for a different kind of world. Each person who recognizes what's real in your journey strengthens a network that's quietly shifting the whole atmosphere. The open conversations, clear examples, and new standards you live by are reprogramming what's normal for generations to come. The traps that caught so many before can't survive in this new field. Those born now step into a world where the games and masks are recognized for what they are. They grow up with wisdom that once took years of suffering to earn, handed to them as a gift. Where older generations fumbled alone, these children inherit a shared language for the subtle wounds and silent struggles. The healing you chose doesn't just move forward, it also shines a light backward, helping make sense of the past, and rewriting what stories get told at every table. History isn't being written the same way anymore. What used to be told by the hands that harmed is now told by the hearts that survived. Blame no longer sticks to the innocent. The truth of who really caused the pain is rising up. Those who thought your breaking point would be your ending now face the reality that your rise is the thing that unravels their hold. Each time you rebuild, it exposes everything they tried to hide. Everything that was once meant to silence you has become evidence of their own undoing. The ways they tried to break your spirit are now proof for everyone to see, simple and impossible to deny. The tactics that once cornered you now isolate those who use them, as more people see through the old tricks and step back. The confusion they spread is collapsing as their stories stop making sense, and the shame they projected circles back, lighting up their true intentions for all to witness. Every doubt they ever placed in your path has grown into a confidence that reveals who was really afraid all along. Their attempts to twist your story now stand as monuments to their own lack of integrity. What they once used to blame you has become the record of how they blocked the solutions all along. By trying to go against what's right, they triggered a force that will never be undone. The world itself rewards those who choose truth under pressure, and the more pain you are handed, the greater your return. The strength they tried to take from you is restored and multiplied, echoing forward as the new standard for what's possible.